Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night, paralyzed by fear, because you felt someone watching you? Did you know that many people can't shake that feeling because the one lurking in the shadows won't let them wake up again? And what if every whisper in the dark isn't just a sound, but a warning? Today, you'll hear stories that will make your blood run cold. Each one will make you wonder, what if these horrors are real? And what if the next victim is you? Brace yourself as we delve into the deepest fears from which there is no escape.
Mary stood at the edge of the forgotten village, her heart pounding in her chest. The air was thick with a chill that seeped into her bones, and an ominous fog rolled in from the nearby woods, shrouding the crumbling buildings in a ghostly veil. As she took her first step onto the cobblestone path, an unsettling silence enveloped her, broken only by the distant echo of a mournful wind that seemed to carry whispers of the past. Her keen eyes scanned the surroundings, taking in the dilapidated homes that lined the narrow streets. The windows, like hollow eyes, were dark and lifeless, while the doors hung ajar, creaking softly as if inviting her deeper into the village's haunting embrace. Vines twisted around the stone walls, reclaiming the village with nature's cold grip. Yet it was not the overgrowth that sent shivers down her spine. It was the palpable sense of despair that permeated the atmosphere. As she moved further in, Mary heard faint, disembodied cries that danced through the air echoes of the tormented souls who once inhabited this cursed place. The sounds seemed to swirl around her, growing in intensity, tugging at her consciousness. She could almost make out the faint murmurs of incantations, remnants of the sinister witch rituals that had scarred this land long ago. It was as if the very ground was saturated with the remnants of dark magic, pulsating with a life of its own. With each step, unease settled in her stomach like a lead weight. The village felt alive, as if it were watching her, judging her presence. She could sense the weight of the curse that loomed over the inhabitants, those who had succumbed to the malevolent spirits that had taken hold of their very souls. Mary tightened her grip on her talismans, knowing that her mission was fraught with danger. There was no turning back now. She had to confront the darkness head-on. Yet, as she crossed the threshold into the heart of the village, a creeping dread washed over her, signaling that she was about to unearth horrors far beyond her imagination. As Mary ventured deeper into the village, she soon encountered her first villagers. They wandered the streets aimlessly, some appearing almost normal, engaging in mundane tasks like sweeping the debris from their doorsteps or tending to forgotten gardens. Their faces bore expressions of weariness, yet there was a glimmer of humanity in their eyes, a flicker of the lives they once led before the curse enveloped them. However, not all she met were so fortunate. A few villagers stood motionless, their gazes vacant and hollow, as if they were marionettes with cut strings. Their mouths moved, but the words that emerged were disjointed and foreign, a cacophony of voices that sent chills down Mary's spine. The unsettling contrast between the seemingly normal and the possessed filled her with dread. Who were these people now, and what had they become? As she continued her exploration, ghostly cries echoed through the abandoned homes, reverberating off the crumbling walls like a mournful symphony. The sounds seemed to beckon her closer, urging her to uncover the village's dark secrets. Shadows danced in her peripheral vision, flickering and shifting as if imbued with a life of their own, creating an eerie tapestry of movement against the backdrop of decay. Mary's heart raced as she stumbled upon a small clearing where she discovered occult symbols etched into the ground, half buried under layers of dirt and leaves. The symbols pulsed with an unnatural energy, and she felt an overwhelming sense of dread wash over her. The air thickened, and an unseen force pressed against her chest, making it difficult to breathe. Suddenly, a faint whisper curled around her, a chilling warning that slipped through the air like smoke. Mary turned to see a nearby door creak open, revealing a darkened interior. From within, a flicker of light danced, but it was not a warm glow. It was cold and filled with malice. Spurred by equal parts fear and determination, Mary approached, knowing that each moment spent here drew her deeper into the village's horrifying truth. Determined to confront the malevolent spirits plaguing the village, Mary began her first exorcisms on the possessed villagers. The air was thick with tension as she approached a woman named Eliza, who stood rigidly in front of her home, her once kind eyes now a void of darkness. Mary felt an icy shiver run down her spine as she began her incantations, desperate to reach the soul trapped within. Eliza's lips curled into a grotesque smile, filled with malice, as she began to chant in a voice that was not her own. The sound was discordant, a twisted harmony that resonated with centuries of pain. As Mary pressed on, Eliza's body convulsed violently, the air around them crackling with energy. The spirits fought back, and Mary struggled to maintain her focus, sweat beading on her forehead. Shadows swirled around them, whispering derision and filling her ears with the echoes of past screams. Each failed attempt to sever the connection only deepened her anxiety, for the villagers around her began to gather, their faces twisted in confusion and fear. Next, she encountered a group of children, their laughter now a cruel mockery as they chased each other in a distorted game of tag. Mary's heart ached at the sight. She could see that their once innocent eyes held a sinister glint. As she began her second exorcism, the children stopped abruptly, their heads tilting in unison like eerie puppets. "You cannot save us," they sang in unison, the harmony unsettling and unnatural. The sound reverberated through her soul, amplifying her doubts. With trembling hands, Mary invoked the ancient rites, but as she tried to free them, the spirits unleashed a torrent of malevolence. The children's bodies twisted grotesquely, their laughter turning to shrill cries as if the very essence of darkness surged through them. Mary felt a wave of despair wash over her. She was losing them. They were slipping through her fingers like grains of sand, her heart heavy with the realization that her powers felt inadequate against the malevolence surrounding her. Finally, she faced a villager named Thomas, a man who had once been a pillar of the community. As she began the exorcism, Thomas's body erupted in a fit of rage, his voice morphing into a cacophony of tortured souls. "You are but a flicker in this darkness," he roared, his eyes swirling with a tempest of fury. It was a desperate struggle against a force that seemed to laugh at her efforts. With each chant, the air thickened with despair, and Mary felt her energy waning. After what felt like an eternity, she faltered. The exorcism failed, and Thomas collapsed to the ground, his body lifeless and his spirit still trapped. Mary fell to her knees, breathless and shaken, questioning her abilities. The village echoed with the laughter of the spirits, and she realized the curse ran deeper than she had ever imagined. The weight of her failure pressed heavily upon her, igniting a creeping dread. What if she was destined to become just another lost soul in this village of horrors? As Mary continued her exploration of the cursed village, her resolve grew stronger. Each interaction with the villagers revealed fragments of its dark past. She approached a lucid villager named Agnes, whose once vibrant demeanor had dimmed under the weight of the curse. With trembling hands, she recounted the chilling tales of the witch rituals that had taken place generations ago. They summoned shadows and sacrificed innocents to gain power, Agnes whispered, her voice barely audible over the mournful winds. The villagers were complicit, and now we pay the price. Agnes spoke of a fateful night when the witches, consumed by greed and ambition, unleashed a malevolent force that would forever alter the village's fate. The spirits of their victims, those who had been bound in chains of agony, now roamed the streets, their cries echoing in the shadows. Mary's heart sank as she realized that the villagers were not merely victims. They were also prisoners of their own making, trapped in a vicious cycle of pain and despair. Suddenly, a violent gust of wind swept through the clearing, causing Mary to stagger. The air crackled with energy as a dark figure emerged from the shadows. It was a powerful spirit, a remnant of the witch's past, its form flickering like a candle in the dark. Mary felt its malevolence wash over her, an oppressive force that threatened to consume her. "You dare to challenge me?" the spirit hissed, its voice a chilling blend of anguish and rage. Mary's instincts kicked in, and she began to recite her exorcism rites, but the spirit laughed, a sound that reverberated through her very bones. The ground trembled beneath her, and she felt the village itself respond, as if it were a sentient entity feeding off her fear. Shadows twisted and writhed around her, enveloping her in a suffocating darkness. For a moment, doubt crept into her mind. Was she merely a pawn in this malevolent game? As the spirit lunged forward, Mary summoned every ounce of her strength. The air pulsed with energy, and she fought against the overwhelming dread that threatened to swallow her whole. In that moment, she understood the horrifying truth: the village was alive, a manifestation of collective suffering that thrived on despair. If she did not find a way to confront its very essence, she too would become a lost soul, forever entwined in the village's dark legacy. With each passing day, the village descended further into madness. Mary felt the weight of urgency pressing down on her as she witnessed the horrifying transformations of the villagers. Once familiar faces twisted and distorted, their expressions morphing into grotesque masks of fear and rage. The curse was relentless, claiming more victims daily, and she realized that time was not on her side. In her desperate quest to save as many villagers as possible, Mary darted through the narrow streets, her heart racing. The shadows seemed to whisper her name, taunting her with every step she took. She caught sight of a group of villagers gathered around a flickering bonfire, their eyes glazed over, entranced by an unseen force. As she approached, a chilling scream shattered the air, and she turned just in time to see a man convulsing on the ground. His body contorted unnaturally, as if he were being wrenched apart from the inside. Mary's blood ran cold. She had to act quickly. "Stay back!" she shouted, raising her talismans high. The villagers turned toward her, their expressions shifting from blankness to feral rage. They lunged at her, possessed by the spirits that controlled them. With a quick sidestep, Mary barely avoided their grasp, her heart pounding in her chest. The very air crackled with malevolence as she fought to maintain her composure. As she retreated into a nearby alley, she felt the oppressive aura of the village closing in around her. She had to find the source of the curse before it was too late. A wave of despair washed over her as she realized that with each failed exorcism, each soul lost to the darkness, her own chances of escaping dwindled. The village was becoming a labyrinth of horrors, and the longer she stayed, the more she felt its pull, threatening to ensnare her within its cursed embrace. Determined to uncover the truth, Mary pressed on, but the village had other plans. A chilling laugh echoed behind her, sending shivers down her spine. She turned to find a figure emerging from the shadows, its features obscured but its intent clear. Time was slipping through her fingers, and the stakes had never been higher. She had to unravel the mystery of the curse before she too became a prisoner of this forsaken place. The air crackled with energy as Mary stood at the heart of the village, her breath coming in sharp gasps. Before her loomed the source of the curse, a towering spectral figure enveloped in darkness, its form shifting like smoke. It was the spirit of the most powerful witch, a remnant of the past that had orchestrated the village's descent into madness. An unsettling familiarity washed over Mary, as though she had stepped into a nightmare crafted from the deepest fears of the villagers. With a defiant roar, the spirit lunged at her, its laughter echoing in the air, a sound that reverberated with centuries of anguish. Shadows coiled around Mary, threatening to pull her into the depths of despair. As she steadied herself, she felt a surge of power from within, ignited by the countless souls she fought to save. "You will not claim me," she shouted, her voice firm despite the terror clawing at her mind. Mary began to recite the incantations she had learned, each word resonating with a fierce determination. The air shimmered, and for a moment she felt the tide of battle shift in her favor. The spirit writhed, its form flickering, as if struck by the force of her words. But then it retaliated, unleashing a wave of darkness that crashed over her like a storm. Mary gasped as she felt the malevolence seep into her, whispering doubts and fears that threatened to overwhelm her resolve. The ghosts of the villagers appeared around her, their faces twisted in torment. "Join us, Mary," they pleaded in unison, their voices a haunting melody that echoed in her ears. "You cannot win. You are one of us now." Her heart raced as she felt the seductive pull of despair. For a brief moment she faltered, her grip on reality slipping. Yet, in the depths of her mind, she remembered the innocence of the villagers she had encountered, their laughter and their lives before the curse. Drawing strength from their memories, Mary fought back against the darkness, her voice rising above the cacophony. "No, you will not have me. I will end this." With renewed vigor, she unleashed a surge of light, a blinding radiance that illuminated the shadows. The spirit shrieked in agony as the light pierced through the darkness, revealing the horror of its true form, a twisted visage of the witch, forever bound to the pain she had inflicted. The village trembled, and the ground beneath Mary shook, as if the very essence of the cursed land was rebelling against her defiance. But the battle was far from over. As the light surged, the spirit retaliated fiercely, its tendrils of darkness wrapping around Mary, squeezing the breath from her lungs. Desperation clawed at her throat as she fought to maintain her focus, her mind battling the overwhelming urge to succumb to the shadows. Would she become yet another lost soul, trapped in this wretched existence? With a final earth-shattering scream, the spirit unleashed its fury. Time slowed as Mary felt the weight of the village's history pressing down upon her. In that moment, she knew she had to make a choice to give in to despair or to rise against it. Summoning every ounce of strength, she unleashed a powerful incantation that echoed through the air, reverberating with the cries of the villagers seeking salvation. The darkness began to dissolve, the spirit's form flickering wildly as the light consumed it. The village shuddered, and Mary felt her body grow heavy, as if the very fabric of the curse was clawing at her soul. In that pivotal moment, she understood that this battle was not merely against a spirit, but against the collective suffering of a village bound by guilt and despair. Only by embracing that pain could she hope to break the cycle and free the souls trapped within. As the last words of her incantation escaped her lips, a brilliant flash erupted, bathing the village in radiant light. Mary felt herself being lifted, carried by the very essence of hope and light. Would this be her final stand, or the beginning of liberation for the cursed souls? As the blinding light faded, Mary found herself standing amidst the remnants of the village, now eerily quiet. The oppressive atmosphere had lifted, yet an unsettling stillness replaced it. The cursed spirits that once tormented the villagers had vanished, but the echoes of their suffering lingered in the air. The homes, though still dilapidated and overgrown, seemed less burdened by the weight of despair, as if a heavy shroud had been lifted. Mary surveyed the surviving villagers, some kneeling on the ground, their faces streaked with tears. They were free from the curse, but the relief was bittersweet. Many were haunted by the memories of their lost friends and family, their expressions a mix of gratitude and grief. The village, stripped of its malevolence, now laid bare the scars of its dark history. The laughter of children was replaced by the soft cries of the grieving, a somber reminder of the price paid for freedom. Despite the victory, Mary felt a gnawing sense of unease. The shadows that danced at the corners of her vision hinted that not all was as it seemed. While she had banished the spirit of the witch, she couldn't shake the feeling that remnants of the curse still clung to the village, lurking just beyond the edges of her perception. As she turned to leave, a chill ran down her spine when she heard a faint whisper, a voice barely audible, calling her name from within the depths of the forest that surrounded the village. For a moment, she hesitated, glancing back over her shoulder. The villagers began to rise, their movements slow and deliberate, yet there was something unsettling about their eyes. They appeared almost vacant, as if the light had illuminated their bodies, but not their souls. As Mary stepped away, a shadow flickered in the periphery, darting between the trees. She felt the weight of an unseen presence, a lingering malice that refused to be vanquished completely. With each step she took away from the village, the whispers grew louder, threading into her mind like a haunting melody. Mary's heart raced as she realized the battle may have been won, but the war against the darkness was far from over. The village had been transformed, but the shadows remained, coiled and waiting, ready to reclaim what was lost. Months had passed since Mary's harrowing confrontation with the malevolent spirit that had haunted the cursed village. Yet, as she stood alone in her dimly lit apartment, she felt no solace from her victory. The weight of her experiences hung heavily upon her shoulders, a constant reminder of the darkness she had faced. Night after night, images of the tormented villagers invaded her dreams, their hollow eyes and anguished cries echoing in her mind. Each dawn brought with it a hollowness, a disquiet that settled in her bones. The shadows in her home stretched unnaturally, skittering away whenever she turned to face them. On the rare occasions she ventured outside, a chill would wrap around her, whispering secrets she dared not decipher. Mary often found herself glancing over her shoulder, half expecting to see a familiar figure lurking in the corners of her vision, a remnant of the curse that seemed to follow her like a persistent shadow. Even in moments of laughter shared with friends, a weight pressed against her chest. They spoke of mundane troubles, while Mary felt the pull of something dark and unyielding, an invisible thread tethering her to the village she thought she had left behind. In quiet moments, the whispers began again, a mournful chorus that beckoned her to return. The village, now stripped of its overt malevolence, still held secrets beneath its surface secrets that entangled themselves with her very being. One fateful night, as she tossed restlessly in bed, a piercing scream shattered the silence, reverberating through her dreams. She jolted awake, heart racing, the echo of despair tearing through her. In that moment, Mary was flooded with the realization that the curse might not be fully broken. The dark presence that had once enveloped the village now seemed to linger, a shadowy specter that wouldn't allow her to forget. As she stared into the darkness of her room, the air thick with an unnameable dread, Mary wondered if the battle against the darkness had only just begun. In that unsettling stillness, she felt the curse reach for her once more, and the weight of its grip tightened around her heart, leaving her to ponder whether she had truly escaped or merely stepped into a new nightmare.